Unmute. Hello. Anybody there? I don't see any participants here. We'll try it. They may have given up. All right. But that to me is the easiest way, to go to the shul website. And then from there, you just click on those things. Why people look at the tables are pushed away, I don't know. And Marty is right. What happens is people come in, they grab stuff, right? And then they leave it. There's a Yom Kippur book. There's Humashim here that I don't know why Humashim are in here rather than the show. Anyway, I assume David Cheslow gave the right?
Yes.
Okay. And this is older. What's today's date? Is the 21st? No, 20th was,
23rd.
today's the 23rd. So this,
It's 23.
yeah, so this is already old already. They didn't come out with a new weekly, right?
No.
Okay, so we just have to remember
They probably come out with it
today.
today.
Yeah. All right, so let's include the year of learning Sue and Arnie Garelick in memory of Malcolm Mann and Philip Mann and the whole family. Marcia Fetterbush in memory of her husband. Shem Feliska in memory of her mother. Leslie and Gail Kaplan in memory of their parents. Friends of Avi and Martha Gidler. Children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren of Toby Paris. Friends of Marco Levy, Joe Wolf, Charlie Gelfstein, and Ramona and Sam Levine, in memory of Ramona Levine. I'm just going to go through it quickly. Lynn Rappaport, in memory of her husband. Jonas and Claire Wazer, in memory of his mother. Robin Lerner, in memory of her father. Aria and Judy Cohen, in memory of their mothers. And Lillian Ziv, in memory of her mother. Okay, and that's basically what was. Okay, so where should we be today? On Kaf Gimel, right?
Yeah, but he ended up really on the bottom of 12.
Ah,
22. He stopped right on the top with the first words.
okay. So we're going to start on the last line of Kaf Beis Amud Beis, right?
Right.
With Rabbi Yehuda, okay?
That's where you start.
Okay, so that's where I figured we would begin. All right, exactly. And I didn't even ask him about it. Good. And I figured you'd know that. All right. Amar Rabbi Yehuda. So we were talking all about this issue of putting incense or putting something on clothing. And we said that the problem there is clearly the example of creating a fragrance as opposed to when you do other things where you have an existing fragrance and you're simply increasing it. Okay, so we're going to see that in just a moment. So Amar Rabbi Yehuda, so Rabbi Yehuda says, Al gabe gachelet asur. But if you put it on coals, it's forbidden. Al gabe cheres, but if you put it on a piece of earthenware that's hot, a hot piece of pottery shard, okay, and you warm that up and then put the item on it, the incense or anything else, that's acceptable. Rabba Amar, and now we're on the top of Kaf Gimel, right?
Yes.
Okay, so Rabba says, Al gabe cheres nami asur. Rabba claims, no, even on the pot shard, okay, that would be forbidden. Why? Mishum dekamole drecha, because you're creating this fragrance. Rabba v'Rabbi Yosef da Amrei Travaihu. And the two of them say what happens? Sechufe kasa ashirai. If you turn over a cup, okay, and you place it on silk garments, right? Biyom tava asur. That's also forbidden because any fragrance that would be inside the cup would be still creating a brand new fragrance on the silk garments. My tama, what would be the reasoning? Mishum dekamolid recha, because again, you're creating the fragrance. Now, what happens? Umayshna asks the Gemara. So how is that different?
Creating a fragrance.
Right. In other words,
That's like,
you were perfuming, it was part of the work, a part of the process of cleaning a garment. And so you'd be over on a biblical requirement of a malacha.
okay.
Okay.
But it's not cleaning the garment, really.
It's but it's part of finishing cleaning the garment. It's that after they would mechabes would be what? Not just the washing, but the whole process. Right? Okay, think of it. You don't just wash a shirt, right? I hope you put it in the dryer afterwards, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
True.
and maybe you even put something inside the dryer.
Well, in
right.
those days, we would just hang it out to dry.
Well, right. Okay, in those right. Okay, but what happens? So the Gemara asks, "Sumai shna mimulolo." What about if you rub it, you squeeze it, you press it with your fingers, right? Umariachbo, and then you smell it. Isn't that a problem also? Aren't you creating a odor then? The kotmo, or you cut off a piece of the wood, all right, a little piece of the bark, all right, and you get an odor from the tree in that way, all right? Harvey Greenberg, welcome, Harvey. Sorry, we got started late due to the davening. The kotmo, right? Umariachbo, and you smell it then. Okay. All right, we're about 5-6 lines down on Kaf Gimel. Okay. Hatam recha miha ita. There the Gemara tells you, no, when you rub it, okay, or you just cut off a little piece of the wood, what happens if it's a wood that has an odor? All right, you're just increasing the odor there. That's all you're doing. All right. There's an existing odor. There you're simply adding to the odor. Here in this case, what happens? Olode hu demechil, right? Dekamolid recha. Because there you're actually creating. There is no existing odor in the garment. Okay. What you're doing is you're putting the odor into the garment. Rabba Amar, says Rabba, al gabe gachelet nami muta, and therefore putting incense, okay, or fragrance on coals is acceptable. Mide davi abisra agomre, because that's really no different on coals. Okay, even if the meat is put on coals, right? You're still cooking it, right? That's permitted. Okay, even if what happens is some of the juices from the meat are going to do what? They might extinguish the coals. Okay, but that is not enough to say you can't do it because it's still part of what's permitted. Plus, remember we had a situation that says davar she'ein mitkavein, according to Rabbi Yehuda. I'm sorry, according to Rabbi Shimon, is mutar. Right. So what happens? Now we go on. Darash Rav Gavia Mibei Katil, and this was expounded by Rav Gavia from Katil, Apitcha Debe Reish Galuta, at the doorway of the Reish Galuta's house. Right? Ketorah, namely, Ketorah is considered, the exact translation is both Art Scroll and Koran said it was knots. But what they're trying to tell us is if you have folds or pleats, okay, that's what they're referring to.
It's not the same as pizza when you say pizza maktoros.
Not exactly, okay, all right. Shari, that's permitted. Amale amema, my ketorah. So what do we mean then by this ketorah? So e ketorah b'yadi, if we're talking about actually tying knots with your hands, ma'aseh umanhu, that happens to be a professional, an artisan who does that. So that's clearly prohibited, right? Ve'ila ashen, and if you're talking simply to create smoke, to use the incense to help create a fold, let's say on a garment, right? Asur, that's prohibited. Daha kamechabeh. Why? Because it's going to create something that's going to extinguish, right? Amarle Ravashi. And so Rav Ashi answers as follows: Le'olam la'ashen. Okay, where are we talking about creating some sort of smoke, letting the incense, right, rise, the fragrance rise? Mide dahavi abisra agomre, because that's similar to when you put meat on coals, right? Now, Ikeda Amre, we have another version of this same story. There are those who tell it the following way: Amar le Amemar. So Amemar explains it this way: My Torah, what do we mean by this not fold or pleat? Ik Torah biadi, if we're talking about doing it by hand. Maase omanhu, we said that is a craftsman's work, and that is prohibited naturally. Ila ashen asur, if it's to allow it to be done through the smoke rising, that's forbidden. Why? The kamolid recha, because that's creating an odor, creating a fragrance on whatever garment it is. Now, Amar Rav Ashi. So Rav Ashi says to us, Ana Amrita, I say as
Creating a
follows.
fragrance.
Right. In other words,
But just
again,
creating a fragrance.
because that's part of the whole laundering the garment. In other words, it wasn't simply enough to what you think of the following. What did they do? They took the garment, they went down to the creek, they washed it, right?
Yeah,
Then
as
they
long-
have
as-
to
as
hang
long
it
as
up.
you're still working with the garment, but creating a fragrance, I'm thinking of a pot of food.
Right. No, here you're applying, you're deodorizing the garment, right?
Still the garments.
Right? Think of the fact that what do we put in with a dryer? That's why I was kibitzing Zev. What do people usually put in when they dry their clothes? Right?
Yeah.
They put in I forget what you call it.
I think gives fragrance. Yeah.
Well, but it means that the clothes don't get wrinkled. They don't get, right? Okay. Your wife will, I should remember it because I do the laundry too sometimes. Amar Ravash, he says, Ana Amrita, I would say as follows: Nahale umishmei de Gava Rabba. Let's proceed, and I will cite it in the name of a great person, namely Rabba. Amrita, and I would say as follows: Nahale. We go and explain it this way: Le'olam la'ashan. This is always, we're talking about causing the smoke to rise. Umide dahava abisra agomre. And that's similar to placing meat on coals, because there too, smoke is going to rise. You're going to create a fragrance, but it's part of cooking, even though then still we're dealing with the whole issue of it maybe causing extinction. Okay, let's get to a new piece now. Va'osim gedim mikulas. What we're talking about here from the Mishnah is that we said that one could even cook an entire roast, an entire goat, with it in whole, even with its internal parts alongside it. Okay? Tanya Rabbi Yossi, and Rabbi Yossi taught as follows: Omer, Todus, Ish Romi. Todus was the man's name, who was a Roman, a Jewish Roman authority. He was a sage in Rome. Hinhiget b'nei Romi le'echol gedim kulas b'leilei pesachim, that he encouraged the Jewish people of Rome to eat a roasted goat on Pesach night. Shalchule, and the rabbis in Eretz Yisrael sent him the following message: Ilmale Todus ata, were you not another sage, Todus? Okay, were you not equal to us in your learning? Gazarnu alecha nedui, we would excommunicate you. Why? She'ata ma'achil et bnei Yisrael kadshim b'chutz, because you're allowing Jewish people to eat sanctified food outside the Beis Hamikdash. Kadshim sakadatach. Do you really think this is consecrated food? Asks the Gemara. Ela ema ke'ein kadshim. but rather I would say it's similar to kachim. In other words, why today do we have the minhag that clearly we don't eat, okay, certain roasted foods on Pesach? Okay, matnitin. We get to our new Mishnah. Okay, in this Mishnah, we continue the whole topic of what malacha, okay, again, is permitted. We said only preparing foodstuffs. We saw with Rabban Gamliel, there were some things that he was stringent and some things that he was lenient. So the Gemara now is going to tell us examples where Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah, okay, differed from the rabbis. Shlosha dvarim Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah matir v'chachamim osrim. Three things were Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah permitted and the rabbis forbade. What were they? Number one, parato yotzei beritzuah shebein karneha, that his cow went out with a decorative strap or ribbon tied between its horns. Okay, he thought it was an ornament. The rabbis felt it was a kind of work. Okay, and so what happens? Let's go on. Second example, umekardin et habehema biyom tov, and one uses a metal comb with thin teeth to curry, to scrape an animal. Okay, and the third example, v'sochakim et hapilpalin b'reichayim shelahem, and that people could grind peppers with their hand grinder. Now, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, says Rabbi Yehuda, ein mekardin et habehema biyom tov, mipnei she'oseh chavurah. According to Rabbi Yehuda, we cannot use this metal comb that has thin teeth because it can cause a chabura, a wound to the animal. Aval mekart safin. Okay, but we can use a wooden comb with thick teeth to comb, to curry the animal. But the sages say, ein mekardin af lo mekart safin. We can neither comb with a metal comb nor with a wooden comb. So the Gemara now asks, Lamema, is this to tell us the Rabbi Eliezer Barab Azariah chad para havyale, that when you say he had a cow that went out with this decorative strap or ribbon, that he only had one cow? That's impossible. V'ha'amar Rav, but didn't Rav say? V'amrei la, and others say, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, that Rav Yehuda said in the name of Rav, Tleisar alfe agle have maaser Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah me'adre, that Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah, excuse me, was so rich that he had basically 130,000 animals, of which a tenth was, right, basically 13,000 animals that were his maaser each year. Okay, may adre from his flocks, kol shata v'shata, each and every year. Right. So what happens? Tana. Therefore, we learn from a Tana, lo shelo haita. This particular cow wasn't his. Ela shel shchinato haita, was from a female neighbor. Umitoch shelo michaba, and since he didn't protest against her allowing the cow to go out this way in public, nikret al shemo. That's why it was called by his name. Okay. So in other words, as I said, he thought it was an ornament. The rabbis felt it was using the animal for work. Umakardin et habehema biyom tov, and we say that they combed with a metal comb, thin teeth on Yom Tov. That was not to be done. He permitted, they didn't. Tanu Rabbanan, and it's the rabbis taught. Ezehu karod ve'ezehu kartzof. What is the difference between this metal comb and this wooden comb? Karod ktanim, okay, namely the metal comb had small metal teeth, va'osin kabura, and therefore it can cause a wound to the animal. Kartsof gedolim, that the wooden comb had large or thick wooden teeth, right? Ve'ein osin chabura, and they wouldn't make a wound on the animal. Okay? Now the Gemara wants us to know, v'shlosha machlokot b'davar, and there was a three-way argument on this particular issue. First case, Rabbi Yehuda Savar. Rabbi Yehuda was of the opinion, davar she'eno mitkavein asur, that even though you didn't intend to cause the wound to the animal, it was still forbidden to do. Why? Okay. Mihu, nevertheless, karod ktanim va'osim chabura, where the where the metal comb had small teeth and caused a wound. Kartsof gedolim, the wooden comb had larger, thicker teeth, ve'enosin chabura, and they don't make a wound, velo gazrinin, and therefore we don't make a decree, kartsuf atu kadrod, that it would be permitted to do the wooden comb lest one do the metal comb. V'Rabbanan savrei, and the rabbis were of the opinion, nami Rabbi Yehuda, also like Rabbi Yehuda, davar she'eno mitkavein asur, that even though you didn't intend, okay, it was to cause the wound, it was still prohibited. V'gazrinan kartsuf atu karud, and we do make a decree that prohibits using the wooden comb lest one use the metal comb. The Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah, that's the third leg of the three-way argument, right? Savar la, what did he hold? Ki Rabbi Shimon, like Rabbi Shimon, who says, the Amar, davar she'eno mitkavein mutar, that where you did not intend, that is permitted, it's not prohibited. Ubein karod, ubein kartsof, shari. And whether you use a wet metal comb or the wooden comb, it's permitted.
It's still the psik ratio, isn't it?
Well, we'll see. Amar Rabba, says Rabba. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Shmuel, in the name of Rav Nachman, who said in Shmuel's name. Va'amrela, and others say, Amar Rav Nachman Lechudei, that was Rav Nachman himself who said, Halakha ka Rabbi Shimon, that the law is like Rabbi Shimon. Okay, what did Rabbi Shimon say? Remember? He said, davar she'eno mitkavein mutar. Right? That's what he said, Rav Nachman. Shaharei Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah modelo, because Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah agrees with him. So now the Gemara challenges. Amar le Rabba, says Rabba to Rav Nachman. V'lema mar halacha ka Rabbi Yehuda. So why shouldn't you say that the law is like Rabbi Yehuda? Sheharei chachamim modim lo. Why? Because there are multiple sages that agree with Rabbi Yehuda that it is davar she'eno mitkavein is asur. Amar le, Rav Nachman answers back, Ana ka Rabbi Shimon svirele. I hold like Rabbi Shimon. So that's now Rav Nachman and Rabbi Shimon, that's two. Va'od shaharei Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah modelo. And also Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah holds him. So that's three. So we have multiple sages that hold in that way. So you can't say that Rabbi Yehuda's answer is the correct answer. Okay? Let's go over now to Amud Beis, right?
But I thought it was really a psik ratio.
No.
It's definite. It's definite that it's going to cause a wound.
But we don't know that, right? In other words, its potential could cause the wound because of the nature of the instrument, right? But maybe if he's careful in how he combs the animal, it won't cause a wound, right? Okay, right? So what happens in our new Mishnah? Harechaim, we come back to the grinder, right? Shall pilpel tmea mishum shlosha kelim. Use of the hand grinder for the peppers, okay, can render it tameh based on three components, three parts. Mishum kli kibul, because of a receptacle. Umishum kli matechet, because of a metal piece. Umishum kli kivara, and because of the sieve, right? Gemara Tana. And the Gemara has that Tana teaches tachtona, the bottom part of the grinder, mishum kli kibul, because that's where it's an instrument, and because it's rounded, right, it could be susceptible to tuma. Okay. Second of all, emtsait, the middle piece of the grinder, mishum kli kavara, because that's a sieve. In other words, the foodstuffs, it's also rounded. It's a utensil, and therefore it's susceptible to tuma. All right, Yonah, and the top part of the grinder, right, it's got to be metal to cut up the pieces of, right, of pepper, kli matechet, because that's a metal piece and it's an instrument. Okay, matnitin. Now we get to another new Mishnah. Agala shel katan, a child's toy wagon, tme'a midras, is capable of becoming of tuma because somebody can sit or lean on it. That's tamei midras, right? V'nitelet b'Shabbat, but it can be moved on Shabbos. Ve'ena nigreret, and it doesn't cause a furrow. Ela al gabe kelim, but it can only be moved and rolled on cloth and not on the bare dirt floor. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, he says, kol hakelim ein nigrarim, all utensils, okay, cannot be rolled, moved, chutz min ha'agala, with the exception of the toy wagon, mipnei shehi koveshet, because he says that really presses against the earth and it doesn't cause a furrow, a hole. Gemara says, agla, okay, shel katan, the wagon of a child, tmeya midras, is susceptible to tuma because of leaning or sitting. Why? Daha samichaluye, because the child, even if he doesn't sit in it, he leans on it. Secondly, v'nitelet b'Shabbat, it can be moved on Shabbos. Why? Mishum de'ika torat kli aleha, because it's considered a utensil and not considered a something else. Ve'ena nigreret ela al gabe kelim, but it cannot be, so to speak, rolled or moved except on cloth and not on the bare dirt floor. Al gabe kelim in.
If it was dragged on the dirt
That's
floor,
what we're
it would
going to
make the
see.
furrows.
That's what the Gemara is going to ask about next. Al gabe kelim in, in regards to cloth, yes. Al gabe karka lo, but on the plain floor, dirt floor, no. My tama, what's the reasoning? The ka'avid charitz, because it's capable of creating a furrow, right? So, mani, according to whom is this view? Rabbi Yehuda. It's according to the view of Rabbi Yehuda, the amar davar she'ein mitkavein asur, because he's the one who says, even if it wasn't your intent to make the furrow, it's still prohibited. The Rabbi Shimon, because were it to be the view of Rabbi Shimon, ha'amar, who says, davar she'ein mitkavein mutar, who says that even when there's no intent, it's permitted. Why? The Tanya is what's supposed to be here, as taught elsewhere in a Braita. Rabbi Shimon Omer, he says, gorer adam, a person may drag mita, a bed, kisei, a chair, safsal, or a bench, ubilvad shelo yitkavein la'asot charitz, so long as it's not intent to cause there to be a furrow in the dirt floor of his house. Ema Sefer. But I would say, look at the end of the text, at the Mishnah. It says there, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Ein hakol nigrarin b'Shabbat, that nothing can be dragged on Shabbos, chutz min ha'agala, with the exception of the child's toy wagon, mipnei shehi koveset, I'm sorry. Why? Because it simply presses down on the ground. Mipnei shekoveset, because it presses down in, yes. Aval charitz, but if it creates a furrow, lo avda, it cannot be done. So what happens? We have two different versions then of Rabbi Yehuda, and therefore one that says that it's okay if it only leans, only presses, and the other one says, no, not even that is acceptable. So the Gemara answers, Trei Tana'ai va'aliba de Rabbi Yehuda. There are two different Tanaim, and they differ on their view of what Rabbi Yehuda said. One said when the wagon makes the furrow, it's forbidden. The other says, oh, no, a wagon only presses on the ground and doesn't create a furrow. Okay, let's go on a little bit. Hadran alach Yom Tov. Now, since we talked about clearly issues that permit a kind of malacha on Yom Tov, namely preparation of food, we're going to get to a discussion in the next parak of all sorts of other kinds of malachot. Are they acceptable or not? So one of the first things is we might ask, if you've already said that preparation of food is acceptable on Yom Tov, how far does that cover? Right? Can I go out hunting, fishing, things like that? So our new Mishnah and new parak says, Ein sadin dagim min varim, that it's not permitted to catch, hunt, fish from pools on Yom Tov. Furthermore, ve'ein notnin lifnehem mizonot, nor is it permitted to feed them on food on Yom Tov. Aval tzadin chaya va'of min habivarim, but it is permitted to hunt undomesticated animal or birds in certain enclosures. V'notnin lifnehem mizonot, and also to give them foodstuffs in their enclosure on Yom Tov. In other words, you're using the food as a way of trying to lure the animal, entice it, exactly Zev. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, what does he say? Lo kol habevarim shavim. Not every enclosure or item that contains the animal is the same. Zeh haklav, this is his general rule. Kol hamechusar, anywhere that it's lacking. In other words, where it's a small enclosure, so the animal can hide, say da asur. Okay, then it's hunting is forbidden. V'she'eno muchusar, but if it's not a small enclosure where the animal cannot hide, and therefore the animal is fairly accessible for hunting, sida mutar, and hunting is permitted, and that's where we'll stop there. Okay. All right. All right. I guess Steve did not get on this morning. Okay.
He was, and then he left.
Oh, okay. So tomorrow again, the earliest again, because of Chol HaMoed davening, probably the earliest we would get started is 4:15. Okay. I'm guessing and probably Sunday and Monday as well, mornings. Okay. I'll try to send out an email to clarify. Take care, guys. Thank you.
Okay, take care, Rabbi. Take care.
So we press leave. We press
You press leave.